Hey, what is up, Carmination? We are, yes, I know, later than usual for our Monday college basketball live stream. A few less faces than we normally have, just a few scheduling conflicts, which of course lead to this stream being a little bit late. But as always, this is the college basketball live stream for you guys to ask our cappers what questions you may have about a particular bet or a game or whatever have you. Ask it in chat, and if you get the question in before we wrap up the stream, then of course we're going to we'll answer them chronologically. But that being said, we do have Dead Prez picks and We Beat the Spread. Make sure you're following both these guys here on Twitter. We did recently launch our new college basketball tools, working on a few features, a few little situations on them right now to be live for tonight's games. So make sure that later today you go to betkarma.com. You can click on live odds, you can click on live trends or odds comparison, and just click NCAAB in the filter, and that'll show you the new live odds options. That being said, let's cut right to the chase. Let's start off with Dead Prez. What is the first bet you're targeting here for tonight's slate?
Yeah, what's up, boys? I mean, it's a tough slate, guys. As you look at it, it is pretty bad today. There isn't a ton of games. There's no top 25 teams playing, on this entire slate. So it's going to be a limited day. Like we said, Ben and I will, find a couple picks for you guys today. And I'm going to start with Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So this is obviously more in Ben's range with these small schools. Rhode Island today at home, getting 8 points. While I'm not going to, argue with you guys, they're a great team. They do play pretty good defense. And they're a team who, with the pace that they play at, kind of keeps them in games. So I'm going to take a chance, on them today. Obviously, they haven't had a great season by any means, but I think getting 8 at home against this Rhode Island team, it's a lot of points. I don't think it's more of a reaction of not wanting to lay 8 with Rhode Island, but it's a game where you got to really look on this slate for some value, and this is a team who can do it. I think tonight. I think the way they could play, right? They play Colorado, who I don't think Colorado is a great team, but a power conference team. Played them fairly tough. Ended up losing the game by 11. Had a couple good wins at home. They beat up on Robert Morris, who's a pretty average team. So they've stuck in games. Their only example of playing a power conference team other than that was Florida, and they lost by about 40. So not to talk about that game. But at home, guys, they've been stingy. They've been tough. I think 8 points is a lot in this game. So I will back Milwaukee here against Rhode Island to kick us off.
All right. And then I'm guessing, are we getting the first one to be a super small school, a kind of small school? What are we targeting for the first Ben bet here?
This one's I'd say like mid-major. First bet for me is going to be Indiana State +4 at -105. I've seen it -110 a few places. Won't lie, I like the extra 5 cents of juice. So NDSU for me, they're 6-4 on the year, but they're 1-6 in one ATS, and then their other 2 games were against non-Division I schools. They haven't covered a game at home yet, which is pretty crazy to me. They've had some home wins, but they weren't over great teams. But they haven't, necessarily been blowing these teams out. They've been playing pretty average teams at home, and they just haven't been taking care of it. They won by 3 against Cal Poly. That was on the road, though. They've just been having their best win against a better team was against Tarleton, and that was not a big win. It was a win by 1 point at home. So, I mean, they haven't been necessarily super impressive. Indiana State, to me, they have had a really tough schedule. They have the 27th ranked schedule in terms of toughness. So this one for me, NDSU, they're a horrible shooting team. They come in, they have a 44% effective field goal percentage. And stylistically, that plays well into Indiana State because Indiana State shoots 55% inside the perimeter, and NDSU's opponents, they have a 31% 3-point attempt to field goal attempt on defense. So basically that means they force a lot of opponents to shoot inside the perimeter. They don't let their teams get up a lot of threes, which plays almost perfectly into how Indiana State plays, and they shoot really well inside the perimeter. So I think for them, they're going to be scoring a lot inside the paint, and then you pair that with NDSU's horrible field goal percentage, and you kind of have a style of game that you can see playing out really well in favor of Indiana State, and they're catching 3.5 points. When you pair that with the fact that NDSU hasn't covered a home game yet this year, and they haven't been playing even crazy teams. This is arguably maybe their hardest home game of the year. So I really like Indiana State +4 today. I think they can get it done outright. Possible dog of the day spot, but we'll probably get to that later.
Larry Bird appreciates your first bet. All right, Dad, we'll be targeting for the second one here. You are muted,
you are
good
muted,
sir. You have to. I'm pretty sure you did that to yourself. Let me. Okay, you're good now.
I am muted. I'm sorry, boys. Yeah, I was drinking water, and I didn't want to interrupt Ben's perfect stats right there. But as I continue to look through, guys, again, this is a limited slate, so we're looking tough for this one. But I'm going to go to a pretty scary play here, guys. You guys know I love first half unders, but Princeton and Baltimore County here, so UMBC, better known by obviously Maryland, Baltimore County, if it shows up on your book that way. They play at a very quick pace, right? So this is a very fast-paced group, but the over-under in that first half at 73.5, I think is a tick too high for the way Princeton can defend. I don't think Princeton's a great defense here. I don't think UMBC is a great defense, but I just think this number will take really good shooting to go over. So it's just a fade, guys. You guys know I like taking these high numbers on first half unders. It's worked. This number's worked for games like Purdue, Iowa. Statistically, this won't be backed, right? I'm not going to give you guys stats to break this down and say why on paper it should go under, but it'll be very public play on the over, and I like to fade that in this position. So I'm going to go with that first half under here, UMBC and Princeton first half under 73.5. Going to need a ton of points, going to need a ton of pace. I'm willing to take a chance on a couple cold stretches in those first 20 minutes. So give me that first half under 73.5. You're going to have to sweat, but I think we'll cash it in ultimately.
Now, typically when you do your, like I said, everybody knows you love the first half under plays or the first half plays regardless. So I know that we're probably going to get a question about this. So I'll go ahead and ask it, just assuming that one of the many people tuning in is going to ask it, kind of just a preemptive ask the question. What do you think about that same bet, but for full game? Are you going to completely avoid it? Or if somebody wants to actually do the full game,
right?
Which way would you go?
Right, full game, and the biggest thing for me, guys, full game, and I'm sure you guys know this, Ben, obviously, when games like this are close, it's just fouls at the end. In college basketball, the last 2 minutes can just be like 25 points. So I get burned too many times on full game bets that turn in, to foul central as the games go on. So I'm going to avoid that. First half, I also typically think you see slower pace in the game. Sometimes it's feeling out those first 5 minutes, getting into a rhythm sometimes takes guys to get going. So I'm not a big full game under better. I bet a ton of first half unders, but I think this game will stay pretty close. UMBC is a decent team. I think that they can actually stay within this number, and I think it stays too close for me to feel comfortable betting the full game under.
Like you were just saying, sorry, I was just going to say the first game that already went off today, Northern Illinois and Chicago State, that one had like 25 or something points in the final 2 minutes. So, I mean, that's just kind of what you were saying about the first half under versus full game. Sometimes it just some crazy points at the end. And that never happens in the first half because they're not fouling to shoot the three, trying to get back in it. So that is one aspect of first half under.
All right, Ben, hit us with your next play. Are we going crazier than Indiana State or
a little bit. I
in terms of, I guess, school size, when I say crazier, you know what I
mean. Roughly similar. This one's going to be George Washington. I mean, there's not a whole lot of big teams playing like Ded said today, so kind of have to stick with the mid-majors here. But we're going George Washington -5. It's ticked up to -5.5 at some places. I'd still take it at -5.5. I think it'll be a double-digit win. This is kind of the same lines along my Indiana State play as far as home-away splits. Because the home away split for Radford is pretty insane. They're 4-0 at home and they're 0-5 on the road. So complete split, and they're 1-4 ATS on the road. They have had kind of a tough schedule. That's why I bring up the ATS, because you could look at their 0-5 on the road and it's against some kind of tough teams. So it's understandable, but they're 1-4 ATS. So they've been underperforming on the road versus 4-0 at home. Neither team shoots the ball very well, but George Washington does have the better field goal percentage, and Radford is only averaging 51 points per game on the road right now, which plays into that road split as well. And yeah, George Washington has the distinct advantage in the turnover department, which I think will be one of the biggest things today. Radford is averaging 17 turnovers on the road right now, so I think that'll play a pretty big factor today. And they're bottom 10th in turnover percentage. So, I mean, that's really something that's killing their game, probably playing into that 1-4 ATS on the road. So yeah, pretty simple for me. I think George Washington takes care of the ball better, and they've proven that they shoot the ball better. They're just a better team in my opinion. I think Radford's going to keep that trend going on the road. I don't think, to me, an 0-5 team on the road, they're not. It's a 2-possession cover here for George Washington. I'm not going to fix what's not broken. So George Washington -5.5, pretty simple for me.
Now, a question I wanted to ask you about, I don't know if we've addressed this on a previous podcast, but for anybody tuning in that's not familiar with you, or We Beat the Spread at all, can you kind of, in like a few sentences, detail why do you think that you, as your own individual capper, that you target these smaller schools? Do you tend to find easier to beat lines? Is it just because you have a fascination with the non-power stuff? Like, what exactly does your brain do that gravitates towards these small schools?
Yeah, it's kind of the same reason along the line as like when Saturdays happen in college basketball, it's usually a worse day for the books. It's just, it comes down to, I think, lines and a lot of narrative as well. Because a lot of with the top teams, you have more fans for those teams who are betting on those schools. You have more like conference things with people viewing them from the outside. You also have more rivalries that happen. So sometimes people, I mean, I've heard of people who bet against the team literally just because it's a rival school and they don't want them to win, so they'll bet against them. So,
Well,
I mean,
you would bet for them, so it's a like if they win, you win money, but if they lose, you're still happy. That's
yeah,
how I treat it.
you'd think, but yes, I think a lot of it is like narrative. I don't necessarily not bet on the bigger schools. I just tend to find that it's kind of like what you said with the lines. I feel like they're sharper, if that's the word you want to use, sharper lines than the bigger schools. That doesn't necessarily mean I don't play them all the time. It's just I tend to target those smaller schools because I feel like when you dive into the stats, you can find a lot more similarities in what you're looking for, and attributing that to the line difference, you can usually find a better angle on a smaller school versus the bigger schools.
And that, my friends, is why We Beat the Spread, aka Ben, is the small school goat. Matt, I got a question for you. I was talking earlier about pulling up the future natty odds, if you have those or not. But at this given point, which I know it's extremely early in the season,
Ooh.
the first part of the question is not looking at odds at all, just based on actual like stats and power and all that stuff. Who do you think at this point is the team that's going to win, or cut the nets, if you will, for March Madness?
Yeah, I still think Purdue is my favorite tournament team because of the experience that they bring. If I had to guess the betting favorite, I think it was Gonzaga from the jump. I'm assuming it would still be.
Yep.
But my best bet, if I'm projecting out, is Purdue. I think Texas is a team whose value went down a lot from the beginning of the year, but they'll be back in it. They've had some tough road games. Seton Hall is a tough place to play, right? They played them tough, just couldn't finish that game off. They also lost at Gonzaga, but I mean, that's something to hang your head on. So I think teams like that, right now, when you're betting the future, it's not worth taking like a plus 600 future for a national championship. I want to be, 20-1 odds or 10-1 odds plus. So I'm still holding out hope for Texas. I bet on Texas preseason to win the national championship. I think it was just going to take some time to mesh. They were filled with transfers. They had 3 guys that they transferred into that starting lineup, and 2 of their best bench players are transfers, new head coach. So I didn't expect them to come off the rip and be the best team in the country. But I think as the year goes on, Texas is still one of the best teams in the country. So my 2 predictions right now would be Purdue and Texas as my –
Also, I was about to ask you about your Texas bet that you had. You said preseason. Is that Texas bet still, as of right now, as of December 13th, something you're still highly confident in that has a good chance of hitting?
Right. Yeah. Odds wise, I got it plus 1,800 now to 2,000. So, I mean, it's slightly worse odds right now. I think, they've lost some games that I know the Seton Hall game, they actually closed as a dog. So I believe they've covered every game they were like expected to win. But I think as conference play goes on, it'll be them or Kansas who comes out of the Big 12. And then once March hits, guys, we know anything can happen. But on pure talent, this is a top 5 talent team in the school. And I'm a big Chris Beard fan. I think he's one of the best coaches in the nation. So I'm going to hold out a lot of hope there for Texas. But if you're getting into another team who has surprised me with how good they are, it's Purdue. I know they lost to Rutgers this week and went into overtime yesterday, but this is still
Dude,
one of the
that
best
shot
teams
was
there.
that shot was
Right.
bananas, man. I
Yeah,
watched
like
that.
the odds of how that happened. Obviously,
Yeah.
it was a great shot, but they're going to be one of the toughest house guys in the country.
I think value wise, if anything, that actually helps Purdue because the number one team. I mean, usually aside from Gonzaga is actually favored right now, but I think that actually helps Purdue out a little bit. I don't know how much their odds actually changed for the national championship, but they're plus 750. I see on Bovada right now. So I mean, they're the second favorite, right behind Gonzaga, and then right in front of Duke. But value guys, I mean, they're plus 750, and I agree with you. I think Purdue is a stronger team all around. I don't see Gonzaga having the same success they had last year, just partly because of I know AC asked me, I think it was last week, about Gonzaga and should he be worried as a Gonzaga fan? And yes, because I mean their defense is struggling. I mean they're giving up a ton of points per game. I think it was like 81 points per game. I don't know how much that's changed over the last few, but defensively, I don't think they're getting it done, and they're a pretty large favorite right now. I think Purdue and Baylor actually have the most value right now. Baylor, I see they're sitting at plus 1,400. That's pretty good value to me. They still have the experience. They lost Davion Mitchell. They lost Jared Butler, but they still have a lot of good playmakers. They're obviously well coached. We saw that from the tournament last year. So I mean, yeah, I think that's plus 1,400 is pretty strong value on Baylor as well. But they're very similar teams in the sense of very strong defense with some good scores as well. So Purdue and Baylor would be my two value best plays right now.
And then I guess one more for each of you, same subject to wrap up this little short mini pod is if based on what you've seen so far, so based on what you've seen from all of the teams so far in this short part of the season, if you were going to make a futures bet, what is the craziest craziest odds that you would actually consider, not necessarily have to lock it, show a bet ticket or anything, but the craziest odds you can consider, like the biggest dark horse in terms of Vegas odds, from what you've seen from whatever team you're referencing.
Minnesota for sure.
For me, guys, it would be UConn actually. They're 6-1 right now.
That's a good one
to win.
What'd you say they're at right now?
Plus 6,000 right now for me. So, I mean, the value there is pretty immense in my opinion because they are a very good defensive team and, again, experienced. They've actually been kind of banged up. They have two of their star players have not been in the lineup the past couple weeks, and they've shown they can still win a lot of games. So, I mean, that's a team I'm personally throwing some money on to win it all. I think that those odds are outstanding for like a super dark horse. That's probably as far as I would go as far as saying like I legitimately think this team could win a national championship. But I mean, there's always those really good like low teams right now with those awful odds because once you get in, Wisconsin has the same odds. Don't necessarily think Wisconsin could win it, but I mean they're a team who once they're in has a chance. But I actually think UConn is a pretty good shot at making some noise in the tournament as a dark horse.
All right, plus 6,000. Nice, Ben. What is Minnesota's right now?
Minnesota, they're plus 30,000. That was I mean, hey, big win over Michigan. They did get 3 votes to be ranked in the AP poll, but no, I don't think they have any. I think they might win one tournament game or something, but we never do well.
Scratch the Minnesota one. What's the biggest dark horse right now in Vegas odds that you would give high consideration to, based on what you've seen from them so far this season?
Maybe I don't know. Maybe Iowa State. They're plus 10,000. I mean, sure, they're not some crazy offense. They put up under 50 against Jackson State, but I mean, they have shown they can do one thing this year, and that's show up in big games. I mean, they went over Xavier, Memphis, Creighton, Iowa. Two of those were neutral court, and one was away. Iowa was at home. But I mean, those are some big wins. I mean, they're not anything against top 10 teams. We haven't seen them. I wouldn't say we haven't seen them against a true test yet. They played Baylor on January 1st. That'll be an interesting game. I do think they lose it, but if they can have a competitive close game with Baylor, they would be definitely a dark horse, I'd say, because that's going to be their true test against an amazing team. So I think if they look good in that game, they'd definitely be worth a shot. If they're still floating around plus 10,000, they do have a really good defense. So if they do win those games, most likely going to be some low scoring games. But I mean, that's going to be a defensive battle with Baylor. So if they can stay in that one, I think they're a good dark horse bet.
All right, so it's December 13th, 2021. We have a plus 6,000 to plus 10,000. Once one of those hit, sometime in mid-April, we're going to clip the crap out of this, and we're going to promote it on every
If
social
UConn
media.
hits, yes, you won't hear the end of it.
Yeah, I don't think Iowa State necessarily wins, but I think they can go very deep. I could see if they have a good game with Baylor, I could see Elite Eight, potentially, maybe Final Four, maybe.
I'm going to edit out everything lack of confidence you just said, and I'm only going to keep the part where you're talking about how much you like plus 10,000
exactly.
Iowa State to win.
Iowa State will easily win the national championship.
There we go. That's what I needed. That's the clip there. Yep, that's all I need. All right, guys. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here. It's a little short one. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, this is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We have tons more podcasts and live streams we do on that channel. Then just, of course, this college basketball one we do 3 times a week. Later today, go ahead and check out betkarma.com after we push the updates through for the college basketball live odds, the college basketball live trends, and the college basketball odds comparison tool, which if you already know you want to bet on something, whether it's one of these bets these guys said or just something else you want to bet on, you can easily go to that site, see which sportsbook will pay you the most for that bet, and that is how you just become more profitable as a bettor. You got to make sure you shop the lines. But yeah, we'll see you here, same place, same time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, thanks guys for the bets today.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.